Hi everyone! This video will give you a brief description of portraiture through the history of art. Use the information in this video to complete Activity 2 of this lesson. As long as people have made art, there have been portraits. For the first few thousand years at least, portraits, whether drawn, painted, or sculpted, were mostly reserved for those deemed important enough to be honored with a work of art bearing their likeness. The wealthy-most royalty and nobility, and important religious and historic figures were the most common subjects. By the time of the Baroque period, following the Italian Renaissance, some painters had also begun to take an interest in portraits of the common man. Johannes Vermeer was a Dutch painter who spent most of his career painting scenes of the middle-class life. Far from the idolized and heroic portraits of nobility, their work emphasized quiet moments and details of everyday life. In the mid-19th century, things began to change. The Industrial Revolution brought the activity of painting into the homes of the middle class. Mass production meant oil paint and canvas could be purchased at a store rather than made by apprentices in a studio. Anyone could pick up a brush and paint whatever they chose. Artists involved in the social realism movement painted not just quiet scenes of the middle-class life, but the working class and poor, in paintings that were as much political statements as they were portraits. Other artists grew even more experimental. The Impressionists and Post-Impressionists began deconstructing ideas about the nature of portraiture and painting in general. None were more revolutionary than Vincent van Gogh and Paul Gauguin. The artists that followed the Post-Expressionists explored all possible avenues of representation and expression. Matisse, Egon Schiele, and most famously Pablo Picasso pushed the portrait in different directions at the beginning of the 20th century, focusing on different aspects like line, color, form, and most importantly, psychology. For the first time for many artists, the inner psyche of the sitter was as important, if not more so, as the likeness in a portrait. While traditional painters and sculptors continued to make portraits throughout the 20th century, many of the dominant movements in the art scene had dropped representation entirely for abstraction and conceptual art. It wasn't until the 1960s, with the emergence of artists like Andy Warhol and Roy Lichtenstein, that portraits re-emerged as a significant art form, this time as a comment on popular culture and the commodities of art. Portraiture is still very popular in the art world today. Many artists combine traditional and non-traditional techniques to discuss contemporary issues through their artwork. Once you have finished watching this video, please go back to the website to view the next activity in this lesson.